Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast show. And we are talking to none other than Ben Albert, who is with the Real Business Connections. And I honestly feel like you're an icon in the industry. I do see you everywhere. And so I feel like you've got a huge pedestal with thought leadership and you have a lot of influence. So let's zero in on that topic today because I really feel like we're doing podcasts, we're guesting on podcasts to establish our thought leadership, whether we're being intentional about it or not. So let's dive in. Great to have you on the show.
I'm excited. You use the word icon, and if anyone watches micro expressions on the video, my eyes went up like fear. Like, you just call me an icon? And I joke because, like the listener, like you, I'm learning something new every single day. I've been podcasting since 2016, but I still make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm just happy to be with you on a platform like this where we can talk about some of the stuff we've learned and how we can be better at
Mhm.
podcasting.
Yeah, I think we're very similar in that we just want to help people. We just want to give people actionable tips that they can use. And yeah, like I've been, podcasting, God, for 10 years. I don't know where the time goes, but
Wow,
yeah, I feel like you're an icon because I've just seen you everywhere and connected with some, really big names in the industry, which we'll actually talk about in a little minute. So we'll tease
cool.
that. So let's talk about the concept of influence and thought leadership because I feel like there are big words that are thrown around out there. And it's like, oh, yeah, I'm establishing my thought leadership. But it's like some people just don't even understand what that means and what it looks like. So, how would you describe it?
So I'm gonna riff on this, but I originally stole it from my friend Ashley Foz, and she mentioned on my show that there's a thought leader. So there's two parts. There's thoughts, there's leadership. There's I'm not gonna go into some controversial area, but there's a lot of leaders that don't always have the best thoughts. And then there's people with really good thoughts that don't have a mechanism to get that to more people. They don't have the combination. So it's combining the two. It's having good ideas, good thoughts, good influential capacity to solve problems, to give people lessons, to give them nuggets, to lead a team. But you also need a platform. That platform could be you could be a thought leader at your company. You could be a thought leader on your podcast, but you don't become a thought leader until you combine the two. And you can do that on a podcast, you can do it on a blog, you can do it anywhere, but thought leadership isn't super complicated. Like I used to joke, nowadays I know a few things, but I used to joke that I'm like a thought leader, I'm bringing together thought leaders. Because when I started my podcast, I had no clue what I was doing. I was just very good at extending my hand, inviting people on, producing a good show, and having these great guests. But Ben didn't feel like a thought leader. But I was the thought leader on bringing thought leaders together. It's
Mm.
where's your zone of genius? And then where's the mechanism to get that to more people? That's how you become a thought leader. And this is a podcasting show. I think it's one of the best ways to do it simply because you can do it sloppy. If you have a keynote or if you're on Oprah, I'm nervous. I can screw up a podcast and just apologize and never produce and, put it out there. So podcasting is probably one of the best ways to build thought leadership because it's a natural way. And the last thing I'll say on this is there's a great opportunity to document your journey as you go.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. And to me, I don't know if you feel this way as well, but I feel like thought leadership is like you're putting your stake in the ground, like and affirming that I'm a leader in or I'm an expert in this and that you're guiding the conversation and you're starting the conversation versus following the conversation. I don't know, that's how I visually think it.
I like that. It's oh, I'm going to this is like old TED Talk and oh my gosh, I shouldn't even brought it up, but now I have to bring it up. I'm going to my memory bank from 15 years ago. But the short version is it is a crazy dancing person at like some high school event. He's a crazy dancing person, dancing, doing crazy stuff. People are like, this person looks odd." Then a second person joins in. The second person high fives him. The crazy person embraces him as a partner. Now we have two crazy dancing people. Before you know it, three people, and three's a crowd. And in the course of 3 minutes, like by the end of the video, this is an actual video and an actual event. There's hundreds of people storming to be part because everyone's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So there's kind of two things that are happening here. The person who started this movement is a thought leader,
Yeah.
but also the first supporter
Mm.
is a thought leader as well. They might not have been the one who created this crazy dancing movement, created this product. Even if they're a podcast producer or social media manager, they might not be the quote unquote talent, but without them, the whole expansion is impossible. So I don't know why that idea came, but it's more than just planting your flag. It's also
Yes.
finding other flags and raising other people's flags. It's kind of
Ooh,
combining the two.
I love that. What a great
Thoughts on that?
analogy. And
Well,
you can picture it in your mind, right? What a great
uh,
story.
a lot of people do solo only shows and it's great for personal thought leadership, but you're not actually going to enhance the audience and the influence of people around you if it's just you. When you do an interview based show, you get to connect, learn from these people, amplify them, raise their flag, and be the beneficiary of their audience while you do it.
Yeah. So good.
It's a new analogy.
Um,
I've just came up with it. I hope it's okay that I just riffed on that one.
no, I love refs. They're great. It shows your passion with yeah, just the topic and what you do. And I think too, it's when you are surrounding yourself with other people in the industry and kind of like not getting the followers, but like getting those people around you that are supporting you, um, it feels like you're just in a different circle. You're, how do I put this? Like part of the influence of the people that you're hanging around with. I think that
Hmm.
kind of has a little bit of a part to it. That sounded really rambly, but
We all want to be part of things,
yeah.
and we all have passions and things we're really good at. So why not show up on a podcast and be a part? I
Mhm.
mean, the topic is choose your own adventure, really. But if you're passionate about something, like we podcast, you've been doing it slightly longer than me, I believe. But like, does it feel like you're working? It's just something that you enjoy to do.
No, I do genuinely love it. And thankfully, my team does like the nitty gritty that I don't want to do.
That
So
helps.
that is amazing.
Yeah.
But like the conversations, even just thinking about the strategy, the scripts when I do my solos, yeah, it like fires me up.
Mm. Solos are good. One asterisk, and then we'll get back because this conversation's like digression of the day. I love solo episodes. I just don't recommend, especially for a starting podcaster, to only
Mm,
do solos
yeah.
because the way I simplify it is let's say you do 80/20. Let's say you do four interviews. Four, your interviews are going to be better for audience reach.
Yeah.
It'll be better for social proof. It'll be better for your own learning. Your solo episodes are actually better for your own personal thought leadership because people might come for Ben or any guest, but they're going to subscribe for the host.
Hmm.
So those solo episodes sprinkled in often get the best feedback because people want to hear from you. But I think having a fair balance of both is a better way for someone to start. If they're not our, if I'm Oprah, I'm starting Oprah only
Hmm.
and I'm going to sell out. But if I'm just getting started, I'm going to do a balance of both.
That's a great tip. And it's funny how some podcasters still think like, oh, am I going to do an interview show or am I going to do a solo? They feel like it's either or. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. You can like have a panel one day. You can like totally mix it up. I love that. So let me ask you this. Do you feel that guesting or hosting is a better way to create that thought leadership?
Oof. That's like comparing your favorite kids.
That is true.
Yeah. Because they both have their
Yeah.
benefits. Um, better, I can't answer the better question.
Yeah, fair enough.
An easy way to answer that question is if you're very extroverted, if you're already comfortable speaking, like life of the party, raising your hand, the volunteer, you can probably start guesting on shows and you're going to learn some things because people will catch you
Mhm.
off guard, but you can probably start guesting on shows quickly and look confident and really get your word out without having to worry about as much tech, as much distribution,
Yes.
a lot of the technical kind of things. So for a lot of people, guesting's a better route even before they start a podcast because you can just go and start feeling it out and having conversations and not have to worry about leading the dialogue and asking the questions. But in my opinion, I guess you asked about thought leadership. They're both good. I want to own the entity. So I like hosting a show. I like both, but I like hosting a show because that's my entity. That's my
Yeah.
table. I get to
Mm.
choose who's at the table. I get to invite people to be a part of it. That creates a different allure than being a guest,
Yeah. That's
but it's
true.
also more work than being a guest.
100%.
So what's the ROI? I can put in more work and, in my opinion, have a stronger entity, or I can put in less work but have more touch points. Because I
Yeah.
could guest on 8 shows a day, theoretically.
Yeah, that's
I don't,
true. And
I
I
don't
tend to
understand.
agree with you. I think both have their place and they both have strategies involved to help you establish that thought leadership. Now, if you're looking to be a thought leader, I almost feel like there's always someone that we aspire to be like. So it's like, who do I need to be? What do I need to do to get to be like them? And you have a phrase on your website somewhere. I can't remember where I saw it. And
Yeah.
it says there is no key to success. It's a combination lock and each of us has our own unique combination. And that we have every chance to learn, grow, connect and influence and so forth. And I just loved that and would love for you to expand on that a little bit more.
Yeah. And starting with the first part of that question, I actually do believe success leaves clues. And if there's a podcaster, an entrepreneur, a thought leader that you really aspire to be like, and they have a framework, or you can
Mhm.
watch them, you can, through osmosis, through training, through hiring them, get really far. But as you just mentioned, there is no key to success. It's a combination lock. You don't want to be a carbon copy of one
Mm.
person because person A and B might be great and kind of divergent and disagree on some things. But you're person C and you have a completely different life story and your audience is a little different because you're serving a different market, you're from a different location. This and there's so many different variables. And I think when it's a big marketing fraud, and fraud's a strong word, not all the companies are bad, but they'll be like, you have a problem, I have the solution, I have the key. If you want to bridge that gap, you have to hire me. There's a lot of people you can hire. There's a lot of
Mhm.
podcasts you can listen to. There's a lot of mentors that are doing an incredible thing. So it's less about finding the perfect or doing it exactly right. Success does leave clues. If there's a good program, follow the
Mhm.
program, you're going to have success. But you have to learn how to create your own plays, how to add your own flavor. The other thing I joke about all the time is why do they take your fingerprint when you get in trouble? You have a unique fingerprint. You have a unique DNA code. You have a soul. Your podcast, your business has its own soul. It has its own pulse. So I think it's a problem when we try to just mimic someone we
Mhm.
idol because there is no key. It's a combination. And I'm not even certain that you can figure out your exact combination. It's very a lot of tiny little dots and details. But the closer you get, the easier it is to unlock pretty much anything audience, friendship, business, growth. But you have to find the combination that works best for you.
I love that. And I think it's trusting your uniqueness, being in touch with who you are, because really trying to mimic somebody else, it only ends up demoralizing and diminishing
Mm.
um, your own spark and your own magic that you give to the world. Yeah, I just loved that message. And thank you I'm glad I saw it on your website.
Yeah.
So I know you use reviews and I don't know if you call them testimonials, but I almost feel like within the podcasting space, especially, like, oh, to be a thought leader, to be big in the podcast space, like it's all about downloads. And I feel like there are other ways to establish your thought leadership.
Hmm.
How do you see the role of reviews within this scope?
I'm gonna sound like a jerk. I'm criticizing myself, but my popularity to quantity of download ratio, I might be the greatest of all time. Because my podcast doesn't get tens of thousands of downloads. Never when I try to bring a guest on or pitch to be speaking at an event or put social proof on a website. Never do I talk about my tens of thousands of downloads and my massive amount of active listeners that'll buy your product in moments' notice. Talk about none of it. Do I get a decent amount of downloads above average? Absolutely. But I focus more on building that community, building that social proof, where part of why I'm like feeling like a jerk is like I kind of feel like I look bigger than I am, which is a good problem to have.
Uh-huh.
Um, but where it comes from, and we can dissect like reviews and testimonials and
Mhm.
all of that, is really being a student of the game and really loving my audience. And I love niching down. I think it's a positive thing, but I'm slightly not niched down because my podcast is more an evolution. It's a journey. I won't bring someone on just because they're cool. I won't bring someone on just because they offered me money. I want to bring people on that I genuinely want to learn from.
Yeah,
I genuinely want to amplify and show other people too. And it builds trust with the audience. It builds a better interview because I'm engaged. And it makes it easier when I ask for reviews. It makes it easier. I like to use the term nominations. I like to ask my guests to nominate other guests. And that's one of the ways I can leverage getting in the door with bigger celebrities than I am
right.
is just getting a nomination, which is an introduction, but a term like referral, introduction is a great word, but referral seems so transactional.
I
It's like,
know.
I love you. You just, you had, this was such a good podcast. Can you nominate anyone else for the show? Putting that in my contact form. Will you leave a review?
Ooh.
Click
Hmm.
yes in the not contact form, but in the whatever you what do you call those forms when you
Like
fill
the
it out to be
onboarding?
on the show? Onboarding form. Will you leave a review? I don't force them to prior
Right.
because that has an ick factor to me, but I ask them, will you leave a review? So when I ask, I know that they'll say yes. And the other thing is I say, will you nominate anyone from the show? And then after I talk to them, I bring up their nomination. You mentioned Lindsay. Can you make an
Right.
introduction? Your nomination means the world to me. And I'll stop there because we can dissect it into content, how to get reviews. But like if you go to my Apple, I don't have the most reviews. If you go, I don't have the most listens. But I've built a great podcast just using these kind of no brainer, simple strategies to try to build a community around what I do rather than just focusing on downloads.
I love that. And I think that's so smart. And no one ever talks about that stuff, Ben. I don't know why. And they talk about asking for reviews, but then they also don't talk about like what to do with them. So I noticed that on your website, there's like a slider that goes across, and there's these images of like who left the review in like one little sentence.
Yeah,
And like that, it's just visually, but then all these little snippets, it's like social proof. And it
yeah,
looks so good. And I was like, oh, I've never thought of portraying it that way.
yeah,
Um, so I do want to get into what you do with it afterwards because that was really hot. But let's dive into the part about how to ask for the reviews because I know you've got a
yeah.
couple of unique tactics.
And super quick micro lesson, if anyone does go to Real Business Connections and see that, you'll see we make a cartoon for every guest. And that's just a micro lesson. I'd rather be different than slightly better. If you can be better and different, you're going to change the
Mhm.
world. But I'd rather be a little different than slightly better. So even in that imagery you're talking about, we're going to use a cartoon version of the guest just to look different rather than an ordinary headshot that's on every podcast start. But
Right.
I'm willing to do this for you after this recording. But the way I get these reviews is I mentioned I don't have the most Apple reviews. I try not to hound people to get them simply because I feel like, first off, not everyone uses an Apple phone. For iPhone users, that's like mind blowing sometimes. But
I know.
um,
I'm Android.
and we sometimes catch people at the wrong time. So I'm going to slow this down to set it up. But this is like a goofy example. But when's the best time on a date? First date ever. When's the best time to go in for your first kiss? Is it at the end of the day when she's drunk, getting out of the car? Like maybe it went well. It feels kind of awkward. Are you just going to go in there? Are you going to try to virtual kiss them a day later? Like the best time is during an emotional high point. The
Mm.
best time to make any request of any kind is during an emotional high, when you're in rapport, when things are going smoothly. And the problem with asking for anything, this is not just reviews, it's business, it's introductions, it's anything. It's, hey, can you bring something home from the store? Is we catch people at a bad time and we don't even know we're catching them at a bad time.
Mm.
We just have an automated email that goes out Wednesday at 12, and we don't know that at 12 is their lunch, or 12 is their meditation, or 12, or they just don't want to answer your email today. And even when we're incredible, this breaks my heart sometimes. Even when we're incredible, some people just won't leave you a review. And
Yep.
the bigger the guest, the lower probability they leave you a review, which is all okay. That's to set up when's the best time to ask anything. It's on an emotional high. So at the end of the podcast episode, I'm very mindful. I'm super open but tactical. I know we have a 60-minute time range. I already pre-asked them prior to the interview, do you have a hard stop? They say yes, I have a hard stop at 2. At 1:54, I'm closing the podcast because I want them out the door early. And then when the podcast ends, I can make an ask like, I promise you'd be out by 2. If you have one small favor, please say no if this makes you feel uncomfortable. But I'm trying to get more video reviews. One, to promote the episode itself, and two, bring this podcast to more listeners. Would you be open to leaving a video testimonial? And usually they just say yes. Sometimes they say, and you go, we're recording right now. We can do it right now. I can walk out of the room or I could just listen to you. Generally, they're cool. You just had a conversation. You just smile and nod. You get the video testimonial. Does it jack up your Apple reviews? Does it give you more Google reviews, more Spotify listens? It does not. But now you have a video testimonial of a person that maybe wouldn't have even given you a review in the first place. And I'll stop there, but there's so much we can do with that. It's
Yeah.
video, we can
Yeah.
transcribe it, so much we can do with it. But if we don't get the review, it's never going to be on your website, like you mentioned, being on my website
Yeah.
as an example.
It's funny how much we shy back from asking for anything. It's like we think it's the worst thing on the face of the planet. But the way that you phrase that, it feels very humble,
Mm,
not pushy, and you're just kind of like, "Hey man, can you help me out with this one thing?" And we all want to help people. And I know if someone had asked me that being on podcasts, I'd be like, "Absolutely." So it's like if I'm willing to do it for anybody,
yeah.
why wouldn't other people be willing to do that for me? But at least too, you give them an out, so it's not completely putting them on the spot.
Super, super quick
Yeah.
callback to the onboarding form. That's why there's a checkbox. If this podcast kicks butt, I think I use the A word, but if this podcast kicks butt, will you leave a review? Yes or no? Chris Stowe is a great example. Amazing human being. He selected no. I did not lose any sleep over it. I got it. I had them on my show, one of the best shows I've ever done. If they select yes, they've pre-agreed that it's okay
Yeah,
for me to ask them.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. I'm
Yeah.
changing my form tomorrow.
It's like micro psychological tips that
Yeah.
are backed by science, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's killer. So, before we go, I want to get to like what to do once we have those reviews, because I feel like people don't do anything with them. They might put it up on their one podcast page, or they might just do nothing. And I think, oh my God, that's such good social proof. How can we use it?
I'm not even using mine properly. Number one thing is I'd ask someone to get creative
Yeah.
because very simple ways. It's video. Post the video. For example, when the episode goes live on a Monday, I might post the episode. On a Wednesday, I'll post the video testimonial with a callback to the episode. If you have a graphic designer, you turn it into a graphic. You can use, I think Restream has a great, you can just Google search, transcribe any video, get the transcript and touch it up if you need to. But the transcript can be a graphic. It can also be words on your web page. It can also be words on your speaker page. If you have some sort of press sheet to pitch guests to be on, you can have those faces, those words there. When I do speeches, I don't linger on it, but I always have a callback where I show all the faces of people that have endorsed the show. It's a quick way to build social proof on a live
Yeah.
presentation. When I say I don't use it all the right ways, what I haven't done yet, which is the long term vision, is to have like a super long testimonial reel that people see it and they're not even going to watch it. They're like, I just want to hire this person because I see this. You have a micro version where it's like, Lindsay, 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 Lindsay. And it's like all these different voices, and then come and create like a short micro narrative. You can add it to a speaker kit. And another thing that I haven't done yet, I don't know if it's going to be like a short ad because I don't really run ads on the show,
Mhm.
or if I'm going to do it in the introduction, but you can add it to your intro, your mid roll, your outro. Like Real Business Connections is my podcast name. If I have 15 people saying that, 15 times it's boom, boom, boom. Hey, this is Christo. Hey, this is Chris didn't do it. Hey, this is Jordan Harbinger. Just all these different
Yeah.
names. So by now I'm brainstorming because the beauty is you get to be creative.
Yeah.
The acid doesn't disappear.
Right.
So I think I just gave more ways than we need and more than I've even done. So just get started is really my
Yeah.
thought.
Such great ideas. And I love how you use the word endorsement because
Hmm.
I feel like that word has more weight than a testimonial or a review.
You could get in trouble for that word,
Fair enough.
but it does have way more weight.
It does.
Because a quick, hey, I love the show isn't quite an endorsement, but it is an endorsement of the experience. So as long as you
Right.
don't take it out of context, like
True.
as long as you don't have a podcast and you're a financial advisor and you list all these endorsements by non-clients for your financial firm, that's a little weird. But if you say they endorse the podcast or they endorsed your speaking or your interviewing, that I think's okay. So as long as you're not using it in an unethical way, it has a lot more punch than
Yeah,
just like a quick little, hey, good job.
I know. Absolutely. I actually, it reminded me, I watched this podcast. It's like in Australia, these two people, they're like friggin' hilarious. And they always have the voices of their audience. And it says, I approve of this podcast.
I
And
love
I
that.
thought, oh, isn't that cute and smart?
I- One thing, I don't know if you talked about this on the show, but if you have a way people can call in and ask a question, that goes back to thought leadership. If you can have a bunch of people ask questions, you can play their question on the show and respond to it. Anything that can build community engagement and just, again, better to be a little different
Yeah.
than even better. And if you can do both, that kicks butt. So have people call in. That Australian example of like the listeners just saying, I love this podcast or I'm listening to Lindsay's show. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's
I
fun.
know. That is super cool.
I don't want to be your
What great
longest
tips.
episode ever. Has this been helpful?
100%.
I
Absolutely. I
I
love the
want to be your
conversation that we
longest.
had about
Oh,
thought leadership. I
yeah.
love your tips and your perspective. I think it's smart, it's strategic, it's doable, and I think anyone can grab a few nuggets and run with it. I know I'm going to implement two of them tomorrow.
Well, and it's not sleazy, it's not
Yeah.
manipulative. It's just opening your arm and asking the question that people don't ask and posting the video that people won't post. And
Mhm.
like I have imposter syndrome, we all do, but clearly if you're kicking butt, find ways to show the world
Yeah.
and be willing to step into that, you know?
Yes. Well said. Now, how can people find your podcast, The Real Connections, and share with people quickly what you do and how else you can help podcasters?
Yeah, you can Google it. You missed one word, which is totally fine. Real business connections. Think you
What I
said real.
miss?
Think you
Oh,
said.
did I?
Think you said real connections.
Yeah, that's different. That's a different topic.
Yeah, it's similar, but it's you just type those words wherever you found this. If I've done a good job, you should just be able to type it in literally wherever you found this. And if not, just go to Google, type in real business connections. But before you do that, I almost forgot. Click 5 stars on this podcast first. It's really easy peasy. If you haven't done it yet, if you have, find a way to like go to YouTube or share it or DM it to a friend. But step one, click 5 stars on this podcast
Oh,
first. And then you just type in real business connections. After you click 5 stars, I like to delay to give them opportunity to do it.
I noticed that.
You
Don't
notice that?
rush them. I
No rush.
appreciate that.
No rush. But
Yeah.
if you don't do it now, you might never do it.
Ain't
I
that the
hate to say
truth?
that, but that's me projecting. If I don't do things, I forget about them.
Yep, 100%. I think we're all that way. I so appreciate you being on the show and just being so genuine and helpful. And
Thank you.
yeah, I can't wait to share it.
Yeah, it was fun. Anytime.
Correct. Well, folks, that's a wrap. And I so look forward to connecting with you next week on the Leverage Your Podcast show.